Yeah, well, we're live and it's Thursday, May 4th. It's the Senate Agricultural Committee. And we have folks with us from the Legislative Research Service at UVM, right? And so we're going to have to offer and go from there. So, Jack, do you want to lead off?
Sure.
You can introduce yourself and John.
Okay.
We'll go from there.
All right. Thank you so much. Thanks for having us. So my name is Jack Grzinski, formerly Anthony Grzinski, professor of political science at the University of Vermont.
I am Jonathan Bradley, but I go by Doc because the medic in the Army just stuck with me. And I'm a lecturer at the University of Vermont.
So Doc is helping us expand the capacity of the Vermont Legislative Research Service that we're going to run in the fall. And that in addition to that, I want to talk about how we're integrating our program with Liz Raddick's internship, legislative internship program that runs in the spring. And the idea is, so for a few decades now, I've been training students to do research and taking requests from legislators for that research, policy research, and producing that research for legislators. We've been doing that for a long time. In the College Arts and Sciences, under Dean Fall's leadership, the college has developed a really good and extensive internship program in a number of different areas, and one of them is the legislative internship program. I don't know if any of you had interns from that program, but we got together and talked, and we also looked into how we could integrate these two programs so that they could function better. We actually sent out surveys to legislators a couple of years ago to ask how it would work better for you as well. And one of the things we found was that the work of the Legislative Research Service that I supervise, that you'd prefer to have that offered in the fall so that you could get the material more in advance for the legislature. And as far as the interns are concerned, we found in the surveys that you would like to have interns trained a little better. And so those two things, the solution was obvious. We expand the Vermont Legislative Research Service, offered in the fall. And so Doc here is, he's teaching a section of the DLRS on energy and the environment. His expertise is in those areas. I'm teaching the more general section of that. And the idea is we thoroughly train the students, train them by doing, to how to find material, how to evaluate it for truthfulness and accuracy. Part of that process, we also use my colleagues around the university and their expertise. But we train the students to do the work. They work in a team. They work with the legislator who makes the request, or legislators. Sometimes it's a group of legislators. Sometimes it's a committee. And the idea is to train them so that they are well up to speed. They do a number of policy research projects in the fall, and then they intern in the spring, and you have more highly trained interns that you can ask them during the legislative session to go do some work, and they should be much more efficient and able to find you good information. So we wanted to come here today to talk a little bit about that program, but also, since you're going to be off in the summertime, just the idea of showing up today is also to see if there are any research projects you would like the students to do in the fall, policy research, or at least alert you to that so that you can send me an email over summer or into the fall and say, hey, could you have them look up, what's happening? We've done work on, say, raw milk or whatever, something along those lines. What's the latest science on that? And we can put together a brief report for you. So when I first started this project, it goes way back to 1998. Actually, it was Matt Dunn had contacted me saying, can we get students doing some work for the legislature? And over time, I ended up developing it as a class. Later, I got some funding. Now this is the next stage. The funding helped me run it for a few years, but now it's more classical. And now we're going to integrate it with this internship program to really provide a much better service than it would be. So in terms of what the Vermont Legislative Research Service can do, we have a web page where we post our reports. You can take a look at that. They're organized under subject areas. So if you click on the agriculture button and drag that down, you see all the reports we've done over the past couple of decades that are related to agriculture. And so what the students can do under our supervision, they can get you the state of knowledge from scholarly knowledge. What is the research? What is the science in a particular area? And we do wide-ranging set of topics on that. We've done everything from effectiveness of methadone to, how states, what is the latest science on the impact of cannabis use, things along those lines. We can research what other states are doing in policy areas, and to the best that we can, get their experience on it. I've had student teams calling legislators, calling administrators in other states to see how programs are working. So we can do that aspect of it. And sometimes we can actually collect raw data for you. So early on, way back, the ice storm, that was 98, right?
Yeah.
We were tasked to find out what sugar producers, syrup producers want, and what they needed from the legislature to help them recover. And so we contacted as many local sugar producers as we could to find out what their needs are, and then we relay that back to them so we can make the requests. So that's our service. We hope to, and it's modeled on learning by doing. We do some training. We even have them read a book on state legislatures so that they have an understanding of the context in which they're going to operate. Then we train them on finding, evaluating information, and then they work in teams. We supervise them closely. We go over what they write. We go over all of their sources. This is the one time when I'm reading papers where I actually go to the actual sources they cite to make sure they've got it right. And I've had a couple incidences where they haven't. So that, that's part of the service we offer. You're getting our expertise as well in terms of evaluating the material.
So Jack, I'm curious, do the interns come here in the building and sort of shadow, for lack of a better word?
In the spring, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. I had one
Yeah, I was gonna.
back a while ago. I don't know if you were on the committee then.
I had one a while ago too.
She did a bang-up job. Yeah, really worked well.
I think Senator Hashim might have somebody now. I'm not sure. Yeah.
We actually have some former BLRS and intern students working as committee assistants as well. So Rowan Hawthorne, who works with House Education, I believe, committee was a BLRS alum. Names early in the morning. Emily, another former BLRS student, is on another committee we're meeting with tomorrow. It's the legislative assistant.
Do they commute back and forth, or do they live here?
The ones who graduated, some of them now live here in Montpelier. And they've gone on to get other jobs working in this area. We had one student actually work for the speaker maybe about 10 years ago after she did the BLRS, and then she went off to the National Conference of State Legislatures. And in fact, the policy briefs I have the students write are modeled after the National Conference of State Legislatures legislative briefs that they did. The idea is to get you as much information as you're looking for in a condensed business-like writing and documented, fully documented. So when there's a claim, there's a citation. So you can go to that citation as well.
And Irene lives up in Chittenden County, so it'd be pretty easy to communicate.
With some visions.
Yeah.
Or research teams on the phone.
Great.
Do you have any, in addition to other questions? By the way, I did email this to Linda. Sorry.
It's on your webpage.
Okay. If you want a paper copy.
We love the paper copy.
Is that what Liz just sent you?
Yeah.
No, I don't.
No, Liz sent you something different.
Oh.
She sent you information on the internship program.
Okay,
This is the information on the research program. So the research program's in the fall. We train the students. They also, a lot of them will then intern in the spring semester. And so that gives you an example. It's basically a summary as well as some examples of the research we've done. You and Nick to know it. You guys know that. It's funny, every time I teach this course, and you've become a policy wonk because I have to do a deep dive into this material too, and I had never heard anyone do this. Am I pronouncing it right? Yeah.
This year we worked really hard on right to farm. I don't know if anyone's ever looked into that, right to farm laws, you know, because
Yeah.
when people move in and what's that smell? But
Yeah.
we haven't gotten legislation out, no session yet.
Is
about
that
it.
something you want us to look into, and what other states do, for example? Or-
We kind of have a good idea, but I mean, you were asking about new things that we're working on. I don't know if
Yeah.
you're aware of that. Raw milk's always popular one with farmers in my rural district.
Yeah, I think one time I had, you folks look into the milk pricing situation. That, that's so bad that I don't know who the heck could figure out how to fix it, because it's all dealt with basically out of DC. But one issue that we have talked about is having a Vermont state over order pricing system. So that if you remember back years ago, all of our milk got collected, loaded on tankers, and shipped to Boston, the cities, and now everybody back then, everybody was, well, we gotta get into the value added side of this and make money off products. And so we, the state, spent a lot of money helping companies like Ben and Jerry's, Cabot Cheese, the yogurt plants down in Brattleboro. And yet our farmers aren't reaping any of that benefit, where we were told, well, if you got that all going, they would do good from the value added, because these companies, they aren't losing money and they'd be able to pay more. And but we don't have a system to capture any of that value added. And the way to capture it would be to figure out some way to charge them a little bit more for the raw milk that they buy from the companies, and and have it. You certainly wouldn't want to have it too high, or you'd drive them away. So it would be a nominal fee, and that would get returned to the farmer. We talked earlier this year a little bit about doing something along that line, but I didn't feel we had the knowledge to really push that forward. And something like that, if that got looked into at a deeper level, that would be helpful. I think that one of the issues is that farmers we only have two outlets for our money, for our milk. We got DFA up in St. Albans that bought St. Albans or took them over. And you've got Cabot Agribank. And neither one of them will take on new customers. So if you go to a meeting, and you're a farmer, and you go to a meeting and start trouble within your group, they could figure out a way to exclude you from sending your milk there. You're basically done, because the other company isn't taking on any producers, and it's it's not a good situation. And, you know, we rely on our dairy farmers, you know, are the biggest dairy or the biggest agricultural product that we have in the state. Maple's gaining, but it's still a long ways apart from dairy, whether it be organic or conventional type. And, I mean, we just put a bill out of here to help the organic guys at the tune of $5 a hundredweight for the entire year of 2022. Well, you know, that's a lot of money. And well, why? You know, it really makes you kind of wonder what the heck's going on at the federal level, because most all those regulations and pricing and all that is dealt with in DC, not here in Vermont. So that's why we were talking about doing a Vermont state over order pricing scheme. But I don't know if you'd have a student that would want to look into anything like that, or
Well, I think that's exactly the
Or
type of
group
thing what?
or a group of them.
Yeah, I think a
It's
group in
not
the
an
fall.
easy-
Exactly. This
not
is
an-
where the, our project, the Vermont Legislative Research Service would, you know, would tackle something along these lines. They could communicate with you all in terms of, you know, specifics. They could start showing you what they're getting as they go through the process. You could say, can you find more on this, or so on? And you could use them then to dig really deep to find out, you know, I know the big state in dairy other than Vermont is, I believe, Wisconsin, although there's some other states that are pretty active in it. You know, find out maybe what their legislators are thinking about or working on, possible solutions, but also dive down into the law, see how, you know, the opportunities that exist within the set of regulations that are out there, and tap into, you know, maybe some expertise at UVM in the area who can help the team out. That's the other thing I like to envision us as sort of a front door into the rest of the expertise that exists at UVM. So sometimes when the students are working on a project, and I'll have them seek out experts in other areas, like say in the business school, or one time we did a piece on mandatory sentencing, and the students wrote up the report. I said, go see my colleague Kathy Fox, who's a national expert on this, to check it over to make sure you got it correct, if there's anything you're missing. So it provides that connection as well. So whatever the policy area, I think that we can tackle that. If it's something that requires a vast amount of resources, that's where we can't mount a state toll, for example. But we can contact dairy producers if you want as well as part of the process. That's not beyond our capabilities.
Yeah, I agree.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My big push would be to have students actually work really hard at critical thinking. I received a summary from one student this year, and it was basically a repeat of all of the talking points. And it was appalling to me that they didn't somehow find a few of us who were not for S5 to give them a broader perspective such that they could have written a piece that sounded like they could see the advantages and the disadvantages of a piece of legislation by the time the session ended. And I think that as a society, maybe we need more education on critical thinking, but especially a university student, I would hope that by the end of
That's
4
part of
months
it. That's
here, they would have learned that skill and then showed that they could apply it.
Sorry, I interrupted.
No, it's fine. It's all right.
That's part of our training. I say you are not going to include, none of the reports are allowed to include any advocacy groups. I teach them how to identify advocacy groups through when they're doing their research. As we advertise here for the BLRS, this is purely what is the state of knowledge, what is going on. It's nonpartisan. We provide the information, and then that's up to you to do the. I mean, that's where you come in. You're the you do the politics. We actually ran last time I did this 2 years ago. I had to do it every other year because I was chair of the department to kind of interfere with my teaching schedule. But 2 years ago, we had some legislators who really wanted the students to produce advocacy work, and I was like, no, we're not. We don't do advocacy work. You have plenty of advocates around here. The idea is to provide a counter to that. Citizen legislature, you don't have the staff to do this on your own. I mean, you have joint fiscal who can do some, and ledge council, but I have friends in those groups, and I know they are really overtaxed. So the idea is to do this, just straight up the policy work, teaching them to avoid bias material. In fact, one of the books I use is there's a great book called Unspun, Finding Information, subtitle, Finding Information in the Age of Misinformation, or Finding Facts in the Age of Misinformation by Jackson and Jameson. They actually created the fact check website. And so their book is like, how do you go through all the claims and how do you judge them? How do we alert you to attempts at trying to be to sway you with biased work, and then step through step how you actually do that kind of work. So that's part of the training, and that's part of us going through. It's like, no, this is an advocacy group, you can't use this. No, this is Wikipedia, which is effective, which is advocacy groups really control a lot of what goes on in Wikipedia. It's like, no, I do not accept anything from Wikipedia. Don't even go there. Even the citations, some of my colleagues will say the citations get you started, but those citations are even what they're going to show there is, those are biased because they're just picking the research that supports their objectives. So we talk about, the book also talks about individual biases like confirmation bias, so the students are alerted to their own biases. So when we did work on the cannabis before you legalized that, we had some research requests on driving under the influence, how do you assess that. I was on that team big time because stereotypical UVM students, like, we got to make sure this doesn't come across as bias and people just write you off because, oh, it's just UVM students writing about cannabis.
Yeah. See that, I mean, we all know how tiny Vermont is in the grand scheme of the world. And, our farmers, what we did last summer, we had the legislative council do a study on milk pricing and the cost of producing. And it was, they determined that it costs our dairy guys $1.70, I think 6 cents a hundredweight more to produce their milk here in Vermont than it does in New York, Mass, New Hampshire, Maine, all the other New England states, because of our environmental rules and regs that we're doing. And in like S5 was been heavily discussed, and I mean, the people of Vermont are, I don't know, I must have gotten 800-900 emails and phone calls. But they the people are not understanding is why are we doing this to ourselves? We know that heat pumps work down to a certain level, but you still gotta have something to heat your home with below 20 degrees. In all the other states aren't doing much at all, which are much larger in creating already a bigger problem to our environment than we are. They don't understand what's happening here in Vermont, that we've gone gung ho on protecting our environment, but yet our neighbors are still letting the good times roll, you might say. And we think we're gonna save the planet, and yet we have no proof of what we're doing is really the best thing to be doing. And I don't know what other cold climate states are doing for heat compared to what we're trying to do, but things like that would be important to understand. You go to a breakfast like up north where I come from, people get pretty upset with some of the stuff that we're doing, and with no good concrete answers because we're the only ones doing it. But anyways, things like that would be helpful to have.
Yeah, that would be right up with Doc's. So we do have a House Judiciary Committee we have to run to.
Okay.
But
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for us.
just, there's, my contact information's on the sheet. I'm probably gonna also gather everybody over the summertime.
Good.
Because
Please do.
I wanna make sure we have a lot of work that they can do
Great.
to really
Yeah.
train them well.
Yeah, gives us time to think about
That would be
Okay,
good.
thanks, sir. And thank you again for your time.
it. Great.
Yeah, well, thank you.
Thanks, Doc.
Nice meeting you, John.
No, nice to meet you guys.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Jack, will you send me that electronic?
I didn't, sorry. I thought I had.
Would you like a hard copy?
I'm fine with that, but
Okay,
Thank you all very much.
Thank
Wonderful
you.
day.
Thanks.
we'll go up.
Well, I guess that's,
open or close?
Oh, it's fine.
Take care.
we're done for the morning. We gotta be upstairs in 10 minutes, so